We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order, and we will start with roll call.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem LaBarre.
Present.
Councilmember Alfieri.
Here.
Councilmember Case.
Here.
Councilmember Neal.
Here.
Councilmember Zulawaga.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, now Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. America, we love you.
I guess when the guys put him back.
All right, we're moving on to ceremonies, presentations, and appointments. Starting with 3A will be the appointments to Historical Preservation Committee, Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and the Utility Advisory Board. And the presenter is Suzanne Leclerc.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem LaBarre. This evening, we will start with the Historical Preservation Committee. We have been running ads for our open volunteer positions on the city's website. We just continually run them, hoping that people will apply. And we had an application for the Historical Preservation Committee from Michelle Harris. And most of you will know Michelle Harris from the library. She's applied. She lives in Divide. However, the Historical Preservation Committee bylaws allow for a certain percentage of members to live outside the city limits of Woodland Park. Ms. Harris is joining us this evening via Zoom. She's out of the state and she's available for any questions council may have. And I can ask Kip or Rob to pull her in. Or I can, if you.
Do we have this monitor on this side?
I'm gonna get Ms. Harrison
I
here.
think I,
You got her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can anyone hear me?
we sure can.
Okay, thank you. I have a dog in my lap, so he might bark. It's not me barking, it's my dog. But yes, I'm very interested in joining the Historical Commission. I did inquire a few years ago, but at that time there were no options for residents that lived out of Woodland Park. But I do have a strong background in historical preservation in general, and I hope you had an opportunity to review my application, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions or comments?
Only to say that I was intrigued with your Niagara Falls connection and preserving that historical heritage. You want to talk a bit about that?
Yes, I was the executive director of the Niagara Falls Public Library in Niagara Falls, New York, and part of that, part of the responsibilities of that position is also being the director of the local history department of Niagara Falls. So during that time, I was able to really make an impact. I'm originally from Niagara Falls, so it was an honor to do that. But during my time, I was able to catalog the whole collection of historical items that we had. I was able to digitize a large collection of our photographs, and I was able to set up a setting in that location that would be advantageous for preservation, UV lights and UV windows, and I was able to acquire grants to further preserve items in that area having to do with Niagara Falls stunters. So people who went over barrels or walked a tightrope, we have a lot of their items there. We did one on the state park, which is Niagara Falls State Reservation is the first state park in the country, which then led to the movement for national parks. So I was able to preserve blueprints and historical documents asking for the preservation of that park. And we also did one on the industrial history of Niagara Falls. We have a very large industrial history having to do with hydroelectric power. Nikola Tesla came to Niagara Falls, and that was where he began his journey with hydroelectric power. So we had a lot of history in Niagara Falls that I was responsible for preserving, and it was an honor to do so. So I do have a lot of background in historic preservation. One of our libraries was also on the National Register, so I am somewhat familiar with how to apply for grants for those types of things, and also about I'm well versed in restrictions and adhering to and being compliant with preservation guidelines. So I think I have a pretty strong background. I still have a lot to learn, but I think that's part of what this position, why it intrigued me, because I just love historic preservation. And anything I can learn and anything I can contribute to the city of Woodland Park and my community, I would love to do so.
Thank you very much. Very full answer. We can tell you really enjoy this field, so you'll be a good contribution. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
council, I just need to apologize. That monitor is broken, I've been told.
Okay.
So we will operate with this one this
Okay,
evening.
we can do.
Okay. Council, any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Can we get a motion then?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we appoint Michelle Harris to the Preservation Board.
I'll second it.
Alfieri,
Yes.
Case,
Yes.
Labar,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes,
Zulawaga.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Michelle.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I look forward to coming back to Colorado and contributing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next committee we have is the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And we received an application, and I hope I'm saying this correctly, from Miss Danuta Brown, who's with us this evening in the audience. And if I can invite you up to the podium. This is Ms.
My
Brown.
name is Danuta Brown. I've been resident of Woodland Park since 2014, over 6 years. And I would like to serve on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, primarily because I do believe that it's our duty to go ahead and participate in city government. And I'm an avid hiker. I'm a very strong believer that open spaces, parks, and recreational are pretty critical to the well-being of the community, and have some time, so would like to volunteer. If you have any questions, please go ahead.
Council?
I have a question. I'm an avid hiker as well. Where do you like to hike primarily?
Well, today in the morning, I went to Goose Creek wilderness area, and we went to the Harmonica Arch, and the wildflowers are just unbelievable there.
Fantastic.
The Loomis penstemon is just covering the hills right now. It's just gorgeous.
Wonderful.
I would just like to make a commendation for Danuta. She's on the Comprehensive Plan Subcommittee. And if we're ever going to get some cooperation between the Federal Forestry Service, Danuta's the one who's going to develop that relationship. She's very determined for that to happen. So good, all the best if you could make that happen.
Thank you.
I was going to ask her what her definition of dusk is and what her position on vampires, but I'll pass on that one.
Be careful, it'll make headlines.
Good job, Rusty.
Very good. All right. Well, council, can I get a motion then?
I'll move to approve the appointment to the Danuta. Did I say it correctly? To the Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you.
Case,
Yes.
Labar,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes,
Zulawaga,
Yes.
Alfieri.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously, excuse me. With your permission, may I swear Danuta in? Sure. So she's official? Certainly. And she's here? Okay.
Thank you very much. I really look forward to working on the board.
I look forward to working with you.
I'll just have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Danuta Brown, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Colorado, this charter and ordinances of the city of Woodland Park, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the Office of Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, upon which I upon which I'm about to enter.
Upon which I-
Congratulations. Let's have you sign this and then it's all official. Thank you and welcome aboard. Okay, the final committee we have tonight is our Utilities Advisory Committee. And we received an application from Mr. Tim Radigan, who is one of our incumbents. He's already on the Utility Advisory Committee. And I know Kip is excited to welcome him back and to continue on that committee. Mr. Radigan is here with us this evening. Would you like to come up to the podium?
Hi, Tim Radigan, 820 Elm Street, Woodland Park. I've lived there for 23 years. Yeah, I'm a whitewater rafter, so I'm very interested in the rivers and the river flow. And met up with Kip a couple of years ago and got interested on the committee. And there's a lot to learn. So yeah, better stick around a little longer. So,
Council, any questions or comments? The board's even too complicated for us to have questions. so.
Tell us what you've learned so far.
what I've learned so far, that
Yes, it is.
an acre foot of water is very, very expensive.
Mhm.
And we use quite a bit of acre feet of water. Water it's going to be like oil. And this year, especially, you're going to hear a lot about droughts. Lake Mead is, down 50 feet. That supplies Arizona, California. It's not good. And, I'm a little concerned. So we're going to hear a lot, I'm sure, this summer about our water situation.
I do have a question. So you said you've already volunteered on the Utility Advisories Committee, right?
Yes, for the last 2 years, I believe.
Quick,
Yes.
just a quick question. Where is the reservoir as far as focus for the Utility Advisories Committee?
Maybe Twin Lakes
The new reservoir that we're looking at building.
for the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact spot. I haven't been to it, but that is still in negotiation.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you
Boys,
guys
They're
keep it on the
tough.
top
Boy
of
Scouts are
those.
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
would
more to learn.
encourage the
Yeah.
entire committee to keep it at the forefront. So
Yeah, oh, it is. I
absolutely.
ask him every time I come in.
Good. Keep on top of it.
and I will.
All right, thanks. Council, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Tim Redigan to the Utilities Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
Thank you. Labar,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Zulawaga,
Yes.
Alfieri,
Yes.
Case.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. I'm having a hard time with that word this evening, excuse me. And I will just give you your oath of office. Tim, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Tim Radigan, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Colorado, the charter and ordinances of the city of Woodland Park, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of committee member of the Utility Advisory Committee. Congratulations. Thank you. Let's have you sign this. Make it official.
Jeff, I have a question for you while he's signing that. So when he's reappointed, he has to redo the oath. Is that common for all of the positions? It is? Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, council.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to 3B, and that's oath of office to Deputy Judge Ronald Carlson. That'll be Suzanne presenting as well.
I'd like to call, if we could call Judge McClintock up to the podium and she can introduce Mr.
Sure.
Carlson and a little bit about, if you want to join her at the podium, that would be great.
Good evening. After much searching and a long interview process that we had Councilman Case and Councilman LeVar, Councilwoman, excuse me, I shouldn't have said that. I should know better. And several other members participate with, as well as our clerk. We were able to go through several applicants. The interview process was extensive and we went back and forth, but we came up with what we believe is the best candidate who has extensive experience in municipal courts across the state here. Judge Carlson is has well, how many different courts? 7 different courts that he is a municipal court judge for throughout mountain communities here. He could tell you about all of the different ones. I can't even recall all of them at this time, but he's going to be very helpful to me. Obviously, sometimes I have conflicts so that I can't appear on cases because we have a small community. So I'm going to know people, obviously, and I can't hear their cases. Or there's situations where I also have a private practice of my own in the springs, and I'll have conflict days where I'm going to be in a trial or something of that nature. And other judges tell me I have to be there and I can't be here handling the docket on the few days that we have court here. So Judge Carlson is going to be able to cover for me on those days, which I greatly appreciate. So I appreciate him being here today. And Suzanne's going to be swearing him in, is my understanding, right? But if he could introduce himself and explain some more about what jurisdictions and his multiple years of experience. I know that Mr. Wilson already knows him from his years of experience as well. So
I always worry when the resume is too long. But I've been a lawyer in Colorado since 1989. I've been the municipal court judge in Frisco since 1996. And since then, I've become judge in Blackhawk, Silverthorne, Dillon, Kremling, Hot Sulphur Springs, Granby, and Winter Park. I appreciate being able to hopefully help out and hopefully together tackle some of the challenges municipal courts are facing. Seems every year the legislature is passing new municipal court legislation, which is keeping us on our toes, trying to figure out how we can continue to use municipal court as a local court. I view it as an educational court. Sometimes we're teaching people how to learn consequences of their actions. Sometimes we're teaching them how to be better citizens or better drivers. And hopefully the legislature won't take that ability away from us in the end. And just be able to help out with the caseload. So I greatly appreciate the appointment.
Thank you, council. Any questions or comments?
Looking forward to working.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Suzanne, please.
Mr. Carlson said he's the one that usually does it.
Right.
Please repeat after me. I, Ronald Carlson.
I, Ronald Carlson,
Do
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Colorado,
and the state of Colorado,
the charter and ordinances.
the charter and ordinances of Woodland Park.
Keep going then. That I will faithfully perform the duties
And I will faithfully perform the duties
of the deputy municipal judge
of the deputy municipal judge
upon which I'm about to.
upon which I'm about to.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's have you sign this
Great.
and you're all official.
All right, super. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, now we're going to move on to item 3C, That's discussion around amending DDA 2021 budget appropriation, and Councilmember Case and Neil are presenting.
Thank you. And I'll, excuse me, I'll go ahead and start.
Sure.
This agenda item, I hope we can keep it nice and pleasant and everything, but this is an agenda item that was added as a result of the discussion we started inappropriately during the reports period a couple council meetings ago, where I had some questions about comments that had been made by Elijah Murphy regarding the spending of the $30,000 and the purpose, because when I joined Robert, Stephanie, Val, and Jim Paff in approving the $30,000, it was clearly articulated and explained to me that that $30,000 was necessary for the Williams Christensen project, and that's why we were giving the $30,000. It was a discussion in executive session. So the information I received was outside of the DDA's executive session. It was purely a telephone call from both the former Mayor Val Carr, who assured me that the $30,000 we were going to be trying to add was for that project alone. And I confirmed that when he asked me to call Mr. Coy. I did call Mr. Coy, and he confirmed that that's the reason why the $30,000, which is why I did vote for that $30,000. Now, there were some words and discussions during the presentation of the three-pronged attack that the DDA was going to go after, that the DDA actually had flexibility to spend that $30,000 however they wanted. And I think one of the comments, silence was consent, that they have a permission to do that. So I'm raising my hand. I'm not being silent. My vote for the $30,000 was for that project alone. And if that is not codified officially, then I would like to make a motion to either withdraw, or I will be making a motion to either withdraw the $30,000 from the DDA budget or put some sort of a stipulation into it. So that was my reason for asking for this agenda item. I did discuss it with Councilmember Case, who may want to take it a little bit broader, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the discussion over to her, and then we can open it up to further discussion if it's okay with everybody.
Sure.
Before you do, may I just ask, do you have the Zoom call there?
Yeah.
Can you see, is Attorney Paul Benedetti on the call on Zoom?
Yes, I do see it.
He sees
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah, and if at any time, Mr. Benedetti, if you can hear me, if at any time you want to be brought in at an appropriate time, just either raise your hand or I will bring you into the Zoom meeting in a moment. So.
Thank you, Rusty. I, at the time of the budget appropriation, suggested that the theme of our budget for the year was debt reduction. And we continue to have that conversation and challenge that if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And if the general fund is focusing on that, I think as an organization, that should be our theme. And I suggested that there are, without a viable development agreement and something that has funding, has a viable development plan, and moving towards that objective, I don't understand the need for legal services. I don't understand the need for the Woodland Station improvements. And those things can go to fund balance. They could go to debt reduction, early debt reduction, or just to fund balance, which is always available if something of that nature comes to the forefront and can be brought to the council for supplemental appropriation. And that was my suggestion to the council at the time, in addition to the fund balance that's there. So I would like to see the discretionary funds in that fund frozen until such time as we do have a viable project moving forward. I've mentioned this several times, and one thing that I saw on the city's website is that we're advertising for an administrative position and replacing a previous employee. And I have served on a lot of boards that have secretaries, and I am one on a board, and I keep the minutes of each meeting. And if that's the purpose of that position and creating agendas and such, I would suggest that the secretary of the board would be the one that would keep those things and produce those documents as other nonprofits operate. I would ask that that position not be filled and that that line item be frozen as well. Thank you.
Anything further?
I would just say that I do support Rusty's position as he described it as well.
Stephanie, I'm going to ask your comments, and Robert, because you were with me when we voted for
Yes.
that $30,000. But I want to hear your thoughts on it, because to me, it was clearly for that Williams and Christensen project, which is why I supported the 30,000.
And that was not the impression that I had. I think Woodland Station improvements is very clear that it's meant to go to Woodland Station for improvements, whatever that is that the DDA board deems necessary. My concern with this is that I would ask the question, why do we have a DDA board altogether? Because as we're all aware, there has been plenty of contention between council and DDA board over the last few years. And if there is going to be such contention that council wants to go one way and DDA board wants to go another, why have a DDA board at all? Just let council direct the DDA. The reason for that, it's a rhetorical question, is because this council cannot act as the DDA board. It cannot make the decisions involving the DDA district. It is strictly prohibited from making decisions to incentivize business. And that's why we have a DDA board, for arm's length decision to decide what happens with those revenues, with those tax dollars, and what happens within the district. So my concern is that by this council trying to take back the reins of controlling every decision that the DDA makes and not allowing the board to make those decisions themselves, that we are basically turning that into a ghost board, but the council is actually controlling what happens with the DDA, which we are not allowed to do. I think it would be extremely prudent for us to ask for more guidance from our city attorney as far as exactly how far we can go, what our authority is, what it isn't, and what sort of legal jeopardy we're putting ourselves into if we appear to be using the DDA to simply take the actions or restrict the actions of the board to what the council desires. Those are my comments for now.
I think your comments are very wise, and I respect them. For that reason, I am, when I do the motion, I would like to separate my purpose, which is the $30,000, because that was the line item that I was specifically contacted by the mayor, promised, and I have documentation that that's what the $30,000 vote was for. So I would like to, when I make the motion, to separate that from the other line items, because there is a reason why we have a DDA board, and those other line items would fall into your argument, the $30,000, and I'm not sure why you had one understanding when it was very clear to me from the former mayor and Mr. Coy. I spoke to him on the phone, and he assured me that's what the 30,000, and he asked me to trust him that there were closed session, executive session discussions. He could not explain why the 30,000 was necessary for that project alone, but it was required for it, and that's why I did support it on trust. But I would like to break those the motion I'm going to make separate from all other line items,
So
honoring what you're saying.
I'm just going to interrupt briefly and say that this evening, though, this is purely discussion, so there are no motions. If you come to a conclusion in your discussion that you want to bring the item to agenda to have a motion on, we will have to do that at next council.
That's fine.
So tonight is just discussion, so.
I'd just like to follow up on and clarify something that Rusty's talking about is not only was that designation, if you will, of the use of that $30,000 in your conversation with the former mayor and with Mr. Coy, it also was talked about very specifically in open session of the city council and was presented that way and provoked your vote, I'm sure, at the same time. So it is in public record of the city council meeting as well.
Robert, I know you had thoughts.
Yeah, one or two. I serve as the council liaison with the DDA board, and I am a voting member of that board. So I do have some concerns about where we're going with this whole direction of directing the behavior of the DDA. I have asked for Paul Benedetti to weigh in on this. I'm concerned that we're acting outside of the scope of what we're allowed to do as a council. And it begs a question, even before we go to that part of it, what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to achieve as council with respect to the development of the DDA and DDA fulfilling their obligation to the city? We know there's a clock, or not, maybe you don't know, but there's a clock. The DDA is under a time restraint by council to develop Woodland Station. I believe it's December 2023.
December 31st, 2023.
December 21st, 2023. They have the responsibility, and I could go through what the foundation documents are, et cetera, to get a clear understanding of what that is. But they have the responsibility. We elected them as a board. They are all volunteers, and they are working, have for 20 years, and as we've seen historically, hasn't resulted very well in having that develop because of the market, the climate, whatever it is. But they have the responsibility to develop that for the next, until December 2023. If we start directing and limiting how they have determined as a board to develop that property, and we start putting in restrictions there, I would say that there would be a claim against the city for being pejorative of a contract and agreement they have, that they are doing actions to hinder what they can do between now and 2023, and therefore they get the property back. And to me, that's a really fundamental question that has to be looked at here, or we're going to get in a world of hurt. So, but my question to both you, Councilman Neal, and you, Kelly Case, is what do you want to see? What is driving you to want to see something different in what the DDA is doing to cause it to come to council? Because they did present to us a very dynamic solution to say, okay, we are working with this investor, this team of investors, but we can't force them to do anything. So at the same time, we are also going to work on making that space attractive and make it not blighted in the city. One of the foundational objectives is to protect the property from deterioration. And then the third point is looking at what would it take to liquidate that property. And as we heard in that report, Al Born is working with realtors and hasn't found one yet. But so the DDA is moving in 3 different directions to cause development of that property. And for us to come in and then limit their budget seems to me to be not only legally a challenge, But also it's like, are we working together? Are we trying to utilize the benefit why the DDA was created? Some people would argue that the DDA was not a good idea in the first place. Well, it's here, it's brought a lot of revenue and a lot of development into our community, from the apartment complexes to the dollar store to the Microtel to O'Reilly's to the Tractor Supply. I mean, you just go down the line and you see the number of businesses that have been developed in our community thanks to the work of the DDA. So for us to go in and micromanage it is a deep concern to me, and I would like to invite Attorney Benedetti to make a comment on what I've just said.
Well, before he does, I agree. I agree with both of you. I do not want to get into the knickers of the DDA. What I am specifically targeting in my request for this agenda item comes from, and let's go back in time, and it was when Ms. Alfieri, when you were elected, we had a budget that was a consensus budget. But when we had the 7th council member join us, you had the right, I support that. You had the right, you have the right to ask for that budget to be relooked at before we voted on it. And then I did my discussions and research on some of the items that were being proposed to change. The one item that I went into great detail and depth was with Val Carr on that 30,000. We talked about 3 items, which it's not germane to this discussion, but that 30,000, I have it documented that it was for this one project alone. And he then asked me to check with the treasurer to make sure. And I did contact Mr. Coy, and he told me that is exactly what it was for. So I am targeting it. It's the pretext that we were asked to vote for that one line item. The others we can talk about separately. That one line item was for one project that now the testimony we've had at a couple council meetings is that the DDA has the flexibility to use that on other things. And that's not what the vote was for on that line item. And therefore, I don't want to get into the knickers of anything else they do on the other line items, but on the one that we specifically put for one project because it was necessary to move that project forward. And there has been no official word that the project is dead, although it is completely stalled. And we know there are some reasons for it. And I'm not going to go into the personal reasons. I've been notified what they are. Right now, it's not going anywhere. If it starts to go forward, they want to sign the contract, exclusive arrangements. I'm more than willing to cast a vote to give them the $30,000 back. But at this point in time, to answer the question that's about silence being consent, that the DDA has the authority to spend that $30,000 earmarked for a project on other things, I want to take that $30,000 back by changing the budget line item. And then when it's needed, we can always talk about adding it in.
And Rusty, I would chime in on that. I'm not going to follow my sword over the other things, but it was, and it's because it was specifically tagged and targeted for that development project. We approved it. You all approved it. I did not vote for it.
I understand.
And I even mentioned then, just like I'll say again, this council can reappropriate the 30,000 or more. There's somewhere around $140,000 in fund balance that's available for spending, if that's the direction that it goes. It's the fact that it was adamantly proposed that that's what that was for, and that it had to be budgeted in order to move forward with negotiations. That's the issue that I have, is that that was very specific and was it not anything else. And so that I'm with you on that. And like I say, I'm not going to follow my sword on the other things.
So, and then you did want Mr. Benedetti and.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. I know Paul is waiting. when you talk about the fact that your perception was that it was very specifically earmarked for development at the station. One, again, it is categorized as Woodland Station improvements. I struggle to understand how this does not fall under Woodland Station improvements. However, as we are aware, and this council sees regularly, things change. And if the situation that you budget for does not come to fruition, those funds are redirected for other things. One of the examples I will give, most recently this council had, was the approval of the Veterans Memorial in Victor. That came out of our council operations expenditures line item because of the fact that we didn't have enough in our special projects. So it's quite common that if things are budgeted one way, expecting expenses to come out of one specific pot and that's not needed, that they are then reallocated to other items that are needed. So far, this has not been needed for the development. That's not to say that it won't be in the future, but in continuing to try to move forward on progress at Woodland Station, this is what the DDA board has deemed, that I say this council, but council in general, not necessarily this council, has appointed these individuals to take on as their charge. Again, my concern is that this is micromanaging of the DDA and really controlling the purse strings to therefore control the DDA board into doing council's bidding instead of the board having autonomy to make those decisions on their own, as is the requirement to have a DDA board, because we as the government cannot make those decisions. It's simply against the statute and it's against what we have authority to do. I really think we need some more advice and direction from our city attorney as far as what sort of legal implications we are getting into. Robert had mentioned the contract as well. Could this pose a legal issue of us actually standing in the way of DDA meeting their obligations with us through their contract? And furthermore, the fact that if they don't, we get the land back. That seems like a conflict of interest to me, that if we are specifically standing in their way of doing what they think is best as an entire board to move that development along, is there then some sort of argument that can be made that we have a conflict of interest in that, because we ultimately get that land back if we prevent them from seeing through that contract? Ultimately, all I'm asking for is that we ask our city attorney to do some more research and be able to fully educate us and give us his full scope on this situation and what we can and can't do, what our protection is, and what liabilities we have in making these decisions.
And we'll get to the attorneys. I just want to go back to a couple points you made. There is a difference in my mind when a body takes their funds and changes how they decide to spend it, which is the example of the memorial, versus a body that lends or provides money to another organization with a purpose. And you're a banker, loan officer. When somebody comes in and applies for a loan to purchase something, to buy something, they cannot just take that money and do anything they want with it.
Correct.
This is the situation. It is clear in the testimony and other evidence that the money was going for one particular project that is that board's responsibility to keep it in the bank, safe holdings until that project materializes, or come back and ask for it to be changed. Now, they didn't. The words were silence is consent, that we can use it for anything. That is the issue. This is not silence is consent. You were given money for one thing. It's to stay there, or it comes back to us when you need it again. we'll give it back to you. That's my position. And now if we want to turn it over to the
Actually,
lawyers.
I need to make a clarification on that, because I think this is a major misconception when it comes to the DDA, their revenue and their financing. The money that the DDA receives, their revenue, strictly comes from TIF revenue, except for minor donations, things like that. TIF revenue does not go to the city. The city cannot collect TIF revenue, period, under any circumstances. You have to have a DDA to receive that revenue. If we were even to abolish the DDA, that TIF revenue does not continue to flow to the city. It ceases to exist.
Correct.
So the idea that we are lending them money is not correct, because it is not our money to have. It does not come to us. It does not belong to us. We do not have the authority or ability to spend that money. If the DDA does not exist, that revenue ceases to exist. So we are not lending money to them for specific purposes. It is their money alone.
But we are the body that appropriates the spending, and the sole body that appropriates the
Yeah, I
spending.
was
Well,
in that
that's-
And the
analogy I was
authority
trying
to
use.
spend.
So
We have-
Councilman
and if-
Neal,
We approve
If-
the budget, but that
That's
money
the
does not have to go
appropriation.
through the city
And if the money is unspent, it goes back to the fund balance in the fund,
to the DDA.
which belongs to the taxpayers.
Yes.
In the DDA fund, they have a fund balance. The general fund has a fund balance. And when we talk about we're talking about the citizenry. It's not ours. It's not this board's. It's the citizens of Woodland Park. And we, as the elected officials, are responsible for appropriating the spending of those TIF monies.
We are not, though, because those
Yes,
TIF
we
monies
are.
belong to the citizens and taxpayers within the DDA district. And those taxpayers are represented by the DDA board. They are not represented. Now, there is crossover. Some are represented by, well, all are represented by
By
city
the
council.
Yes, ma'am.
But more specifically, they're represented by the DDA board. We cannot access or control those funds. We cannot take from
No.
those funds, unlike our other funds where we can move money
I get it.
between the general fund. We cannot touch the
I get
money
it.
in the DDA fund for
I get
any
it.
city purposes whatsoever.
But the DDA does not have the authority to appropriate the spending. They do have the authority to collect the revenues. They do not have the authority to appropriate spending.
But
Mayor
we-
Pro
Just the
Tem.
council.
Yeah, sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem, I just wanted to clarify something. I heard Councilman Neal say that Murph made a comment about silence is acquiescence. I thought we have a record that the DDA came and presented to council and stated pretty clearly that they have not spent one penny of that money. And from who I understand, the treasurer for the DDA is Tanner Coy, not Murph. So unless that's changed, I don't know whether you want to get a clarification, because if the money hasn't been spent, it's a budget item. We're in June. That goes through to December. I mean, I don't understand why it's become such an issue for you. So
Because I spoke to Mr. Coy and he said that they were planning to spend the $30,000 on other things. He said it after last council meeting in the back of the room. You were sitting there and I carried
No,
on
I
the
had to
co-
walk away.
Oh, you
Remember,
had
the
left
three of
at
us,
the
yeah.
time. That's right. There were three of us. But he said, yes, that they were planning to spend it. He even started mentioning what they were going to spend some of the money on. And when I heard that they were going to be spending it on anything other than the project that it had been appropriated for, that's when I said, nope, time, we need to get an agenda item to further the discussion.
For- Yep.
Yeah, let's go to the
Absolutely.
attorneys.
To Paul
Yes.
and Mr. Coy.
Are you sure? if you're
Thank
ready?
you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Mr. Benedetti, I'm going to allow you to join in by Zoom and unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem and council members, thank you for allowing me to appear before you via Zoom. I'm glad it was clarified that that $30,000, this is tax increment money that is going into the fund of the authority. And as I understand the statute, the authority has prepared a budget and has submitted it to the council for approval. Has council approved that budget?
Yes.
Yes,
Well, I don't know then, once a budget's approved, it is true that the Urban Renewal Authority, not Urban Renewal, the Downtown Development Authority is the entity that by law operates the DDA. And what the role of city council is to approve the budget, but it has to be reasonable in approving it. So I don't know that now that the budget's been approved, that because someone said a line item, as I understand it, this was for Woodland Station improvements. Well, as long as you're using it for Woodland Station improvements, I don't know how the budget hasn't been amended, and it has it.
That's
No.
a discussion we're
Is this a
having.
budget amendment that we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
That the DDA has amended the budget to use them to repurpose the money. Is that right?
They have not, no.
there you go.
Okay.
They have
then
not
what is
asked.
there-
for an amendment.
Well,
The
I,
state
you know,
council
I'm
is
not,
considering one.
here's what I recommend before you do anything, please. I think the suggestion that the city attorney be allowed to weigh in and advise the council of its role, which I think is to provide reasonable approval of matters that the statute gives the council authority to do that. But the council has to act reasonably. And that's what I'm concerned about. We have bond obligations outstanding. We have bond covenants by both parties, the city and the DDA, to carry out the plan and to redevelop this property, the Woodland Station property. And I think, as far as I know, the DDA board has been working hard to do that. The one thing I'm worried about is I worry about for all my clients, they don't have enough money to operate. And if you don't have enough money to operate, I think they can't carry out their duties. For instance, I know the statute requires the DDA board to hire a director. And if this TIF money, if there isn't enough money in the administrative budget to operate the authority, I think the DDA is violating its bond covenants with Vectra Bank. And before we get too far down the road about worrying about $30,000, let's make sure that everybody is operating in good faith under the bond documents. And we should consult the city attorney, consult the bond attorney, and make sure that Vectra Bank, that we're not doing anything to violate those bond covenants. The purpose of the DDA is to redevelop the property and to pay back its obligations. It has to pay back its obligations, but it also has to carry out its redevelopment statutory duties as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benedetti. Council, do you have any questions for the attorney?
And not for Mr. Benedetti, I'd like to hear the city council's perspective on this issue.
You mean attorney? You said city
I'm
council.
sorry, the city attorneys. Thank you, Stephanie.
I'd be happy to provide some counsel and direction on this, but I am not comfortable providing that direction in an open meeting. I would prefer to do that, apprise you of your strengths and limitations privately in a privileged memorandum.
Jeff, I'd like to just pose a question to you, something that in my experience in 24 years with municipal government, the council has the authority to amend the budget that's been approved and can do that by ordinance. Would you please include that in your analysis? Thank you, sir.
Certainly.
Council, any further comments, questions?
Well,
It'd be useful for the purposes of my research to know. I mean, I'll have to make certain assumptions about the nature of this 30,000. Was it a grant? Was it a gift? Was it a loan? What was it? Was it a loan with understandings or not? There's disagreement up here about that.
It's
So-
not a
It-
loan, it's an appropriation of TIP revenue to a specific capital line item.
So it was an appropriation of TIF revenue as
Yes, sir.
opposed to monies from the city given to the DDA.
Yes,
Correct.
sir.
It can only be obtained through the DDA.
Right, okay. Because the city does not possess TIF revenues.
No,
So-
it's not able to.
So it's not, there would be no
Correct.
appropriate, we have nothing to appropriate in that regard.
Correct. It goes directly to the DDA. It comes to the city because the fund is held with the city. If the fund was not held with the city, it would still be paid directly to the DDA.
But the city council appropriates expenditure of those revenues.
Okay,
I don't know if this is appropriate. I mean, there seemed to be confusion as to what the $30,000. I have evidence that is clear. I did notice the treasurer is here. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask him to come forward and state what he has spoken to this city council member, what the 30,000 was for. If it's not appropriate, I don't want to put Tanner in.
No, he's welcome to come up.
Yeah.
Tanner, would you mind? And I'll be very specific. I'm going to ask you to just recall and for the record, the conversation that we had, it was November 18th when we spoke about of 2020, when I asked the question about what the $30,000 that was being asked for, the increase in the line item. Would you please, for the
Tanner
record?
Coy, 240 East Highway 24, here as treasurer for the DDA. And Councilmember Neal, thank you for your question. I have to tell you
Thank
right
you.
up front, I cannot limit my comments to that specific answer. What I can tell you, if you'll allow it, is that I do agree with you largely in what you said. I know why you believe that that money is for a very specific purpose. I had that conversation with the council
Yes.
myself. I was there.
Thank you.
And I would like to give your comments some validity because it's due.
And with that, you can take it wherever you wish to go with the conversation now.
As Councilmember Alfieri pointed out, things change. When proposing that budget, we were under a very certain set of circumstances. And those circumstances change and evolve over time. And what the board has decided is the best course of action to carry out their mission and to meet the obligations that they have changes. And that's very much why we had asked to be on the agenda previously. We came before the council, explained three various components of a plan and asked for discussion so that we could remain on the same page with you to keep you informed and comfortable with what we were doing and give you the opportunity to ask questions, to speak up, to express concerns, etc. I want everybody to know there's been no intent to deceive or claim one thing to get your authority, your authorization for the appropriation, and then go and do something else without telling you. We've been upfront with you about what we're doing. And I just want that known by everyone. After the budget was approved, the DDA board held those funds exclusively for a period of time and did not expend any of that 30,000 that you've been discussing. Still has not. It was being held for the purposes that you've stated. As circumstances have changed, the board has seen several reasons why it would be, it's their decision to use those funds a bit differently. And that's, again, why we came and started that discussion with you here. Our intent is to continue to proceed with some improvements at the property, relatively minor. And I'd like you to know, again, what it is that we're doing so that you can be comfortable with it. And if you're not, you can express that. We would like to improve the appearance, condition, and function of the property. We want it to look and function better. We started work some years ago through some grading, and we've been at it ever since. We have some more work to do with revegetation of the surface of the site, and that requires more grass seed. Grass seed is not free. We have to pay a few $100s for it. The labor to spread it is free, as we as volunteers are doing that ourselves, as we have since we started the project. We may need a skid steer for some minor work at the property. Renting one from the business adjacent is what we would likely do. The cost might be another couple $100. The labor to operate it is free, again, provided by volunteers on your DDA board. We would like to install some feature boulders in the landscape over there to help improve the appearance of the landscape. Those boulders were donated by the mine years ago and are located on the city's property near the fleet maintenance building. They've been accounted for. I have photos of them. They're free. The cost to move them to the site may not be free. There might be some small expenditure in order to relocate those to Woodland Station. As you know, we planted some trees over there. The trees were donated. They came at no cost. The cost to relocate them, plant and water them, was relatively minor. It was a couple $1,000s, if I recall. There is currently a plan for wood chips to be delivered to the site, several loads worth, I understand, that will cover a significant area of Woodland Station. Those wood chips are free. They're being delivered for free and installed for free. There is zero cost for that. You should expect to see that occur any day. As you know, Myrna, the beautiful cog car, was delivered to the site. That's a valuable asset. The cost to the taxpayers, free. And we can thank the Broadmoor and Mr. Dwayne Carter, who's here in the audience, for that. Not one public penny was spent on that. There's a stagecoach and horse sculpture that did cost something like $8,000 or $9,000, I don't recall, half of which was funded through private donations. So this, I'm describing the activities we've engaged in to improve the appearance, condition, and function of the property. For the most part, they're very insignificant, and some might argue not worth doing. Our board believes they are worth it and that we're getting a tremendous bang for every buck spent. Like I said, we do plan to continue work. We would like the authority to expend additional funds on this work, and your trust in that the decisions we make and any expenditures we incur will be appropriate and in the public's interest.
Tanner, I hope you don't mind, or Mr. Coy.
I don't mind at all.
First of all, thank you for acknowledging the information that I had been presented by yourself. And while it would be hearsay for you to say it, that I heard it from Val Carr, I know I have two sources, so I know it was important that you acknowledge that. Thank you. I want to acknowledge that I am not saying that you're trying to deceive. Nobody's trying to deceive. That is not my point. It's the authority to change an authorization from its intended purpose without coming back and getting permission to do something different with the funds that were necessary for what had previously been asked for. My concern with what the DDA is doing there by the foundation document, which I do have, and I do have the 2008 DDA's design plan with me today. Now, most people in Woodland Park have not seen the design document. It's a very impressive design when you look at what the citizens approved back in 2008, what the DDA executive body at that time drew out, what Woodland Station was going to be looking like in the future. And everything was supposed to have been approved furthering this plan. My position as a city councilman is I will support anything that furthers the original plans, but anything that's going to hinder a developer from developing the station, like planting trees in the wrong location. Planting trees in the right location can be beneficial to the intent and to get development. Putting them in the wrong locations can hinder, because trees get bigger, you have to remove them if it doesn't jive with the development plan, which would be up to a developer to come in with. The DDA doesn't do it, the city council doesn't do it, a developer does. But anything that the DDA would do that would slow down development, hinder development, cost more to a developer. In other words, it's an obstruction to the main purpose of the DDA, to get it developed. I, as a city council member, would not be inclined to support. Anything that enhances it, I would be inclined to support it. That's our job, to give you the funds to do your job. So I'm not sure where we go. We'll get feedback from the city attorney. And then based on that, I think then there would be potential motions on another sessions on where we go from here. I just want to be on the record that I'm not against the expenditure of funds if it will cause the goal, the primary goal, development. I'm against things that would hinder it.
I completely agree with you. And I think our board does. We may have a difference of opinion as to what actually furthers the plan and moves us toward the goal. And you just held up a plan that is not official, is illustrative only. It is not what the community voted on or approved. It isn't required. It is not the plan. And if you think that it is, we should engage in this kind of conversation more frequently, because we're on different pages.
Well, it was at that time signed by the executive director of the DDA as the plan, the design plan for Woodland Station.
And there have been many others that have been presented, that have been approved, that have become the goal. It has changed and evolved and changed and evolved. The trees in the right versus the wrong locations being obstructions to development. I understand the comment and would suggest to you that any developer with the capacity to develop that property would not agree with that. He would see those trees as a 5-minute project with a bulldozer. That's it.
Yep.
In the meantime, the public sees those trees as an amenity, as an enhancement of the property, as value added. You have a board of downtown business and property owners, employers, and taxpayers who are much more affected by what happens at that property than many others in the city are. And they agree that this is in their interest and the district's interest to plant trees, to install some boulders, these things that don't preclude development, but rather improve the appearance, condition, and function of the property, which is in the DDA's charter, those words exactly. And using that property to enhance the district ultimately might lead to its own development. If we continue not to do anything with it, don't plant trees, don't plant grass, don't put up a deck around the cog car, then we're not changing our approach. We're not thinking outside of the lane or the box that we've been stuck in for so many years. And it's time for change. We're ready for it, and we're doing it. We'd like your cooperation. We'd like your understanding. We'd like your support in determining how best to go about it. We've proposed some things, And we'd like to have more conversation with you about it so we can move forward.
Council, anything further?
No, thank you.
Tanner, I don't know, or Council, Mayor Pro Tem, sorry. I don't know if this is the time or not, but I do believe the Myrna's benefactor is also here and wanted to share something with us. Is this the time for that in the discussion of things so we can move past the DDA?
We can go ahead and allow that. Yeah.
Do you want to introduce him?
Certainly. Mr. Dwayne Carter is present tonight. As you may know, he spent a significant sum of money to cover all costs of relocating the COG car to downtown Woodland Park. He is someone who's been a part of this community for many, many years. And Mr. Carter, it's an honor to see you. Please join me.
Thank you. My name is Dwayne Carter. I reside in the city of Colorado Springs, Brookdale Senior Community on Go Camp Road and near 21st Street. I'm a business owner in Woodland Park and have been for many, many years. I would like to give a few minutes of background. My wife, Myrna, and I moved to Woodland Park in 1971. Raised 3 children that graduated from Woodland Park High School. In those days, the town was a little bit smaller, but still very effective and run by city council. In 2015, my wife lost her battle with Alzheimer's of 7 years. In November of 2019, I learned that the Broadmoor Hotel was giving or proposed to give the Pikes Peak COG and railway car number 15 to the Downtown Development Authority at no cost, including railroad ties and tracks for the car to sit on. At that time, there's a great deal of discussion within the Downtown Development Authority, as well as outside, relative to expenditures once the car is accepted. Therefore, would DDA accept the car? When I learned about that, I in turn stated that I would take care of the transportation and installation of the car. And that in turn, interesting enough, quieted a great deal of that discussion. The site preparation, so many other expenditures was proposed and taken care of by many, many volunteers, from scheduling, details, agreements. Just a great deal of work went into the preparation and for the placement of the car. The Woodland Park volunteers were amazing. And I might mention there was another amazing person, and she's the chairperson of the Downtown Development Authority. She suggested that the car be named Myrna. And I just thought that was a fantastic suggestion. And obviously, I approved. So COG car number 15 was renamed Myrna. The dedication was last October. And at that time, a bronze plaque was unveiled that's attached to the cog car that in great detail shows a beautiful picture of my wife. And that's attached to the door of the car. I understand that there's a lot of concern relative to the future of the cog car. And at the moment, there's no activity when there should be. The cog car generates a great deal of attention. It should be used, enjoyed by the community. It's there. It's next to Bergstrom's Park, which has the restrooms, the parking lot, and it just seems to be part of the Woodland Station. And the problem is, and the reason I'm here, is the lack of a deck. The car is not functionable without the deck. It sits there, but how is it enjoyed by the community? It has temporary stairs going into it, but that cannot handle people, events, activities. So the subject of the deck, and I don't know if this concept plan can be put up on the screen, or if not, I'll pass it around, or maybe Tanner has extra copies, but there's a concept plan of the deck. And my take on it, we're not getting the deck. I'll go ahead and talk about it, and it'll come up shortly. The car as it sits has temporary stairs on the south side. Here we go. Can you see that?
Can you zoom it up?
Now, to the west, meaning to your left, is a handicap access. To the east, to your right, is stairway. The deck is large enough to handle 10 by 10 sunshade tents for activities, events. So it's not overly large deck, but it's a functionable deck. The temporary steps will go to the north side to the opposite door. So here we have a very modest deck with handicap access, with stairways, and would allow this car to become used, become a source of activities and events. And that's what I would like to see very much. I'm requesting that this be allowed so that Myrna can be enjoyed rather than sitting there. It's a beautiful piece. It attracts a great deal of attention. Ask the folks that have businesses across the highway. They'll tell you how much attention that car attracts. As a sidebar, my daughter lives up above Blackhawk, brought her Kansas cousins down a couple of Sundays ago, and I took them in the car. And as we were sitting there, she decided to show me some features of my iPhone that I wasn't aware of. So I'm sitting there really studying the phone. And while I'm there, a couple, the mother with an infant in her arms, enter the car. Shortly thereafter, another couple that had maybe a junior high school boy. And after that, another couple arrived. And that was in less than a 20-minute period. So I wish that I wish I could sit there with a counter, but it generates activity. It could be enjoyed by this community, and it's not being enjoyed because it can't be accessed. I thank you for your listening ear and your time.
Mr. Carter, one question. Thank you for giving us the history and around the COG and your involvement. The platform that you are showing us right there, can you tell us what the price tag is for the development of that platform?
Thank you for asking. I should have pointed out, this has not been seen by the DDA board. Therefore, that it's not a proposal, it's a concept. And well, it doesn't show up at the top, but anyway, it's my take on a very modest deck that will allow the car to be functionable.
Okay, then my question would then turn to Mr. Coy. I attended a DDA meeting where there was a motion made to come to city council asking for $40,000 to build a deck around the COG rail car. Can you give me a relative comparison, what the $40,000 request that was turned down by the DDA and how that would compare expense-wise to that proposal?
Yes, sir. As you mentioned, the one proposal to request an additional appropriation was not approved.
Correct.
Board. They did not think the plan was the right one to proceed with yet. As Mr. Carter mentioned, the board has not seen that current, that draft. We don't have pricing on it. I'm really not in a position to estimate its cost. I know that materials and labor for construction right now are pretty high.
Right.
Lumber is coming down in price rapidly, but no, I really don't know.
Thank you anyway, then. Thank you.
Council, anything further?
I'd like to make one comment to Mr. Carter. I just like to reiterate what you said about people enjoying the car and let you know how much I've seen people enjoying the gift that you gave to this community. I have the pleasure of literally going to work morning, noon, and evening right next to where the car sits. And I can absolutely certify that I do not walk in or leave my place of work without seeing someone over there, without exception. There's constantly people over there looking at the car, taking pictures of the car, walking up the steps to look in the car. It is a constant point of attraction. And again, I can't even begin to estimate the number of people that I've seen over there since it was placed. On top of it all, if anyone was here when it was placed, I think that's probably a memory that most of us will remember. First of all, it was late November, and we had phenomenal weather. I think we probably had about 100 people that sat around all day at Bergstrom Park waiting for the car to be placed. And probably one of the most exciting things about it was not the car itself being placed, but it was absolutely fascinating to watch them spend 5 or 6 hours just putting together the crane that had to lift this car into place. It was quite the community gathering. So the fact that we had that reason to bring us all together on a relatively unusual warm winter day was certainly a memory that I'll always hold on to. And I just wanted to reiterate that your gift to the community is certainly being appreciated and does attract quite a bit of people to that area. So thank you.
And Mr. Carter, I want to apologize to you. I'm an engineer. My brain goes to analytics mode and I lose all emotions. Thank God we have council members up here that have big hearts and remember to say the nice things. I apologize for not touching on that in my question to you. But Ms. Alfieri did express it perfectly.
So Councilmember Neal or Councilmember Case, do either of you want to summarize for the city attorney? And
You got it, Jeff?
Thanks for asking that question, Hillary. That's great. I'd love to have it for DA.
or would you like me to summarize what I think it is?
I'm going to let you take a shot. If you've got it, then hopefully what I was trying to get across came across.
So what I think I'm hearing is that you would like another attempt at the agenda where a motion can be made, that you would like to review the allocation of the $30,000 once you have feedback from the city attorney regarding your ability to either allocate or withdraw the allocation. of the $30,000, should you find that it was not earmarked appropriately in their budget? Appropriation, sorry. Is that,
I must be a better communicator than I thought. You nailed it. That is exactly what I'm asking for.
that's what I'm hearing.
That's what I've got written down. So
And you understand what I'm
And that
asking?
ability to
And we can
amend the
debate.
appropriation. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for being civil.
So after the city attorney has his ability to provide a memo to you regarding that topic, then you can decide to put
Yeah.
it on the agenda, okay?
Thank you.
So, all right. Are there any other further questions or comments?
I just like it included as well as far as some overview as far as the potential risks that we're getting into by, I'm trying not to use divisive words, what risk council is taking by, I'll use this for lack of a better term, micromanaging the budget of the DDA and what consequences that might leave DDA open to, or council open to.
And if I may,
Sure.
put it into the record, the concerns that come to me from the attorney to raise to council are the following. The DDA statute requires the affairs of the DDA shall be under the direct supervision and control of its board. City council does not qualify. 2, the board is required to exercise supervisory control over the director and staff of the DDA. 3, the board and only the board shall exercise supervisory control over the activities of the director and the staff of the DDA. 4, the city's attempt to assume control of the DDA violates the statute and its covenants with Vectra. 5, the fact that the DDA has no staff concerns me. Among its other duties, the DDA is required under its loan covenants to monitor and cooperate with the county to ensure that the TIF revenue is collected and deposited in the bond revenue fund.
would you send me that?
Sure.
Please. Thank
Yeah.
you, Robert.
And I would say, just to piggyback on what you said, the staff, the statute, and Mr. Benedetti mentioned it this evening, that they are required to have an executive director, a director by statute, and they have by choice not filled that position for many years. And just for the record, I'd like that to be part of your consideration.
What's the question?
There's not a question. It's a statement that the statute requires that they have an executive director and that they have not had one by choice for many years. Can't tit for tat with the statute. Exactly, Hillary. Thank you.
And that is a deep subject.
Thank you
And
for
very
indulging us.
controversial. So,
Anything further?
No, sir. Ma'am.
All right, moving on. We're at number 4 on agenda, additions, deletions, corrections to agenda. Having none, we're moving on to number 5, consent calendar. That was not me.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Labar. This evening on tonight's council agenda, we have 2 sets of minutes for council's approval. We have the May 26, 2021 special meeting minutes and the June 3rd, 2021 regular city council meeting minutes, as well as the approval of the April and May 2021 statement of expenditures.
Council, any questions, comments?
I have a 2 questions concerning item 5B. Does that mean we have to take it off of the consent?
We can
They're
consider
very
it
simple
separate.
questions.
and I have a couple too. So.
I like simple.
They are.
Please go ahead.
Okay. In the spreadsheet, at the very tail end, they list all of the positions in the finances. When I read through that, the columns if they align with the columns above, because the sheets that list the positions do not have labels at the top of the columns, but they would be something like gross amount discounts in net pay. When I looked at the payroll lines, it looks like there is some sort of a discount to a gross amount to get to the net, and it follows through. What would be an example of a discount that these salary line items would be?
I think these are the deductions that employees take from their different compensation, their respective compensation. Like if they elect to do a supplemental retirement plan or some other elective coverage for insurance, that's where that would show up.
Thank you. If you could just have that label added, I'd appreciate it. And then the second question has to do with the city council's expenditure. The Southern Teller County Focus Group, was that the organization that was receiving the $2,500 for the
memorial.
World War II memorial?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Those were my two questions.
Excellent. Sure.
And I had a couple of highlights, and it's really just to get a progress on what's happening with the Sunnywood Booster Station. I saw a check for $166,667. I thought I saw another one for maybe $50,000 or something. Could you just give us an update on how they're going with that project, if that's it, or you know, if it's online, stuff like that?
Okay.
Yeah.
To date, there's been 4 pay applications for that project. It was a $407,000 project. The amounts submitted so far have been, the first pay app was $7,500. The second pay app was $137,000 and some change. The third was right around $60,000, and the fourth was $175,000. Of those, we removed 5% for retainage, just to hold back for warranty periods. The last pay amount that you saw in the statement of expenditures was the $166,000 because they removed about $8,700 in the retainage. So to date, there is about $46,000 left in that project. They have already did substantial completion, and I'm looking for the final pay app for that project, minus making sure there's no liens of any contractors that have placed on the project itself. So it's in full operation and going forward.
Thank you.
There we go. Okay. No further questions? Okay, excellent. Can we go ahead and get a motion then?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as presented this evening.
I'll second it.
Neil,
Yes.
Zulawaga,
Yes.
Alfieri,
Yes.
Case,
Yes.
Labar.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. All right, we're on to item number 6, which is public comment on items not on the agenda. If there is anyone by Zoom who wants to participate, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I believe I do have I have one person that I'm aware of in person to speak. Mr. Perini?
He's his item's on the agenda.
Oh, it's on the agenda.
That he's going to speak to. I did have Mary Jo Larson signed up to speak, but she's left.
Okay, and I am not seeing any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Do you want to ask her, Kip? Thank you.
She went.
She's gone.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right, we're going to move on to 7, unfinished business. Have none. And moving on to number 8, ordinances on initial postings. And I see Sally at the podium. ready
Good
to go.
evening, council. Item 8A is an ordinance 1399 on initial posting. And this is proposing to eliminate the school-related distance restrictions that apply to premises holding liquor licenses specifically located in Gold Hills Square South and one location on US 24. And on the screen is the map that shows the location with which we're proposing to eliminate the separation distance between school use and liquor establishments. It is highlighted in yellow, that particular area. This is a legislative item on initial posting to set the public hearing for July 1st. Just briefly, the planning department has received an application for Merit Academy, a school that is going to be located in the former Woodland Hardware facility in Gold Hill South. And it was brought to our attention by our liquor license administrator, the city clerk, that there are liquor establishments within 400 feet of this school. It does not impact those liquor establishments per se, but if they were to go to sell or to change locations or a new liquor establishment, they would be forbidden to do that unless this separation requirement were removed. The City Council has reduced or eliminated this separation in the past. The first time was in 1985, where the state statute requires 500 feet of separation, and the city adopted a 400-foot separation in 1985. And then in 2012, there was the elimination of this separation within the core of our downtown area. And that was because a school was operating over near Memorial Park and was within the 400 feet of the Ute Inn at that time. So there has been precedence, and we would encourage you to adopt or recommend approval of Ordinance 1399 on initial posting, setting the public hearing for July 1st.
Council questions or comments? And I would like to remind council on this topic, this is only about eliminating the zone. This is not about any other topic. So we were only talking about eliminating the zoning requirement of the distance between school and liquor stores. If you want to talk about anything else, not tonight, okay?
I'm going to try to keep it to that topic.
Okay.
Robert and I did converse, and contrary to what some people might believe, we disagree on some topics, and we actually agree on other topics. You saw.
You can tell me that all you want. We can always talk
We
about that.
always disagree or
Yeah.
agree. Sally, I think we're approaching this entirely incorrectly, where we're trying to change an ordinance to allow a school to it be established where liquor stores, 4 liquor stores already exist. And so we protect the liquor stores. The school gets to go in and they have to be burdened with it. I question the wisdom of the school board that has selected that location next to the liquor. The whole point is you don't want to have a school by liquor places where liquor is sold or distributed. And here we're getting around it by changing the distance or giving them a waiver. The school's still going to be right where it should not be located. Now, I spent over an hour going through the Colorado revised statutes and online trying to find, is there a reciprocal requirement? And maybe Jeff, you may have another homework assignment. Can a school come in after the fact, or is there something that prevents a school from coming in after the fact and saying, we want to go here, all you liquor stores have to move or get waivers or change the ordinances? That just seems wrong, in my opinion. So I'll open the discussion and I'll let other council members jump
If I
in.
may clarify, this is not about the location of the school. This is about the protecting the businesses so they can continue to operate.
I understand, which
The-
is ass backwards, in my opinion.
The
I get it,
school
Sally.
has a due process right to utilize private property for education. So this discussion is not the zoning change. It is a business license change that deals with liquor establishments and protecting the liquor establishments to be able to continue to, well, they can continue to operate. They just cannot make any changes in the future if the separation is not eliminated. And it is the Planning Commission who will review the amendment to the PUD. They will be the deciding body on the due process for a land use case. And schools have the right to request to be located in a PUD, a planned unit development.
So let me just quickly, and then I'll let you go. I
Okay,
understand
fine.
what you're saying, Rusty. It's a silly location in your mind for the school to choose to go to. You wish they would select a better location because you're concerned that in the future, they would ask that we would eliminate or rethink the issue with the liquor stores of the distancing, and perhaps that it could be removed at some point and it would then harm those businesses. So I understand what you're saying. And what Sally's saying is, yes, it's not the best place, but they have the right to choose that. But in order for us to protect those businesses in the future so that they can sell still as a liquor store to another
Or
purchaser or a restaurant, then they are protected. But your concern is, could that protection be removed? Right?
It has nothing to do with the protection. It just seems wrong that establishments that predated another property use organization comes in, there's a statute that says you can't operate within a certain distance. They come in after the fact, and it forces the council to either change their city ordinance, grant them an exemption, grandfather, so they can stay into business.
Right.
Instead of school, the whole intent of this law is so that you
They
don't
stay
have these two type of organizations, school,
Right.
alcohol within a certain proximity.
Right.
There's appears nothing's to stop them to come and put right next to it and say, alcohol selling establishment, get out of here.
Right. Well, and that's where Sally has come in and said, I have a solution for that, and she is offering it. So Kelly, go ahead.
I just want to offer that the places that I've been looking at relocating an office and not anything very large, the opportunities for a place to conduct business are very few and far between in this town, particularly something of any size that might accommodate an academy. And I think what this does is it provides for a solution, and I understand where you're coming from. The approach maybe is not how you would like to see it, but I understand that the demand is there. The location and the opportunity to locate it is very limited supply here. And the opportunity to build something new is, as you know, costs are astronomical right now. And so this is kind of a way to preserve the rights of the business, to maintain their value going forward, because they can still operate without doing anything into perpetuity. But if they decide one day they'd like to sell their business, then that's precluded from doing that, because then that change triggers this.
Yeah.
So we're trying to preserve that for the business.
And I understand all of that we're trying to protect the business. The fundamental,
And facilitate the school.
the fundamental flaw as a parent is this allows a school to go in next to a liquor store. And
In a
that's what the
restaurant.
law.
I think it's the
in a
restaurant that's really
But there's
tricky.
four liquor establishments that are being, there's four in the document.
They're
they
restaurants
talk-
and then one liquor store. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One liquor store.
Mayor
there's
Pro
AJ's,
Tem,
three
there's the
Mayor
pizza
Pro Tem,
place.
point of
Yeah,
order.
Sure.
It seems like we tend to get into these backwards and forwards and instead of letting all of council say something to get weighed in and we get into this backwards and forward stuff. So it really doesn't allow it to get explored.
Would
Can
you
I
like-
just ask that I saw Councilwoman Alfieri has a comment. I have a comment.
Do you? Go.
Thank you. I was going to wait patiently.
I know, I was just watching. And I didn't see any other hands at the moment, so I'm sorry.
That was okay. So I agree with you, Rusty, even further to the extent that when you say the concern is that this might negatively impact the pre-existing businesses that already sell liquor, have a liquor license, and then allow a school to come in. And then all of a sudden, these businesses are not allowed to serve, or understanding that they're somehow grandfathered in, but new businesses would not have the same exceptions. It seems to me to be backwards as well. My further concern with this zoning existing is it's not just the pre-existing businesses that are then influenced by a school coming in after the fact, but it's also a matter of the appropriate location. And I'm not saying I absolutely agree with what Councilmember Case said. It's hard to find a location. If the school thinks this is appropriate for them and this is what's going to work for them, so be it. I trust that they can make that decision and they know what their parents of the students are willing and not willing to accept. But the further concern is, again, the businesses that might come after. That area is very much appropriate for restaurants and for liquor stores and whatever that might mean. Southern Lily is currently sitting empty and historically has always been a restaurant, not always a restaurant that's had a liquor license, but oftentimes has. So my concern is even new businesses that would come in that would be subject to this restriction might be negatively influenced by it. Ultimately, I think if they're all happy to coexist, then who am I to say different? But I just wanted to make that further, that I absolutely agree with you about negatively impacting the pre-existing businesses, but also the fact that future businesses, that really is an appropriate area for them to be. And I'd hate to see them negatively impacted as well. It's not like we're looking at the school and we're the high school and Gateway, and all of a sudden somebody wants to put up a liquor store across, Baldwin from them. May not be the most appropriate location for a liquor store when you're going in right next to a school, but this school is coming into an area that is mostly a retail restaurant area. Yeah.
And can I just clarify, I believe the elimination of the restriction will apply to the area as a whole in the future as well. It is not just for the current.
Yes, unless you repeal this in the future.
Right.
If this school is looking at a temporary location, and there is a possibility to come back and repeal that. But I would like to caution council about talking about the land use. That is an application that is going through a quasi judicial case, and it is not within the purview of city council. This is an amendment to the PUD of Gold Hill based upon findings. So that's planning commission's purview, not the city council's. And we do not have the applicant here tonight of the school. This is not about the location or the appropriateness of the school location.
Thank you,
Thanks for that clarification. So I have a different take on this altogether. It says here on whatever the paragraph is, it says, whereas it has been determined by the city council that this is in the best interest of the citizens of Woodland Park. I don't think we have enough information to even bring this ordinance yet. COVID has kind of precluded the school board giving a quarterly report to council. So we have no idea of what the status is of the need for this. I mean,
Wait,
number
wait,
one.
I
let
don't
me-
mean to interrupt you, but okay. When we talk about these topics,
This, let
Right
me finish
now-
my thought, please. I'm very clear on what the guidelines are
it's
here.
outside.
It is not outside.
It is.
You cannot say,
Jeff.
please let me finish my thought. It says here, whereas it has been determined by city council it's in the best interest of the citizens of Woodland Park. I would say we don't have enough knowledge to say that it is in the best interest of the citizens of Woodland Park. I totally agree. It's the planning department's purview as far as issuing permits for a school to be where they need to be. But what's happening here is I'm being asked as a city council member to approve a moving of the boundaries of authorizations of what's been put into place. So I don't know that we're not being called upon as a city council to move the boundaries because of something that's happening in the education quadrant that's not part of our purview. School boards is not part of city council, but it's pushing whatever's going on there is pushing it into our boundaries, and we have to compromise to say, oh, we're going to allow these two to coexist, and we're creating a situation where we are consenting to say, yeah, let's have our children near alcohol. It's okay. It's just a matter of saying yes to it. There's a deeper issue here, and so I don't think we have all the findings we need to bring this yet. I would like to invite the school board to come and give us a report on the status of where we are in the city. And from there, when we have public comment, we're going to really know if this is in the best interest.
I know.
Excuse me, would you let me finish?
It's first reading. We'll have a public hearing.
So to say that we have
Get that.
determined as city council that this is in the best interest of the citizens of Woodland Park, I don't agree. And I don't think I have enough information to, in good conscience, to let this go to the next step. So I would
Robert-
simply say, can we schedule to have what we normally have on a quarterly basis, have that on the calendar, bring this back, and it gives us then a reasonable platform to determine that actually this is or is not
So two
in the best
things.
interest of the citizens.
Two things. One, the board doesn't have anything to do with that. If Merit wants to rent a space in a building, they can. The school board has no authority over that. Their opinion does not matter. It is their right to rent an office space or building space anywhere they want in this town.
Correct.
That's one.
Correct.
Two, this is initial hearing. That's all we're voting on is can it come back now with the public so that they can, the Merit can present and we can have testimony. That's what this is today. That's it. Is can we now agree that this can come back as a public hearing on this issue so we have testimony? That's how the board or whoever wants to come and speak can get here. That's why I was saying,
So as for
About
first
topic.
reading, so as a first reading,
right.
I think it's erroneous, and I don't think I have enough information to, in good conscience, say,
So the
this
only
is in the
way-
best
Right,
interest of
the
the
only way you
citizens of
can
Woodland
get that
Park.
information is to agree that we will allow this to go so that we can hold a hearing. That's the purpose of this. The purpose,
I've
do you
stated my
follow what I
position.
mean?
I follow what you're saying. I've made my.
Because we can't,
my
no one
position.
can come talk to us if we don't agree to let this go through to a hearing.
It's process.
It's process. Councilmember Neal, go ahead.
Are you done? And I understand the process. I don't know if this question now is going to go outside the bounds
Okay.
of the guidance. Can we ask that some form of an ordinance also be drafted, maybe by the city attorney, that would make it, we would establish a new ordinance that would make it reciprocal that a school is not allowed to select a location within the The rules.
No, we
cannot.
can't do that by law.
That's
Right.
totally,
Right.
that's.
Right, we can't do that by law, and
Okay,
that's
that's
also
just-
the point of
no.
me saying the school board, and
Right.
it's the same thing. That people can come in with their opinions, but the board is not a guiding light on this issue. They have no authority as to whether whatever academy would want to come in and rent a space in a building. It is not in their purview. Now,
Well-
if the board is upset about something and they want to come in and speak, they can come to public hearing and they can speak. I'm not saying no one can come and speak. Anyone can come, if they're in California to New York to LA, whatever their heart's desire, they can all come in and they can all tell us what they think about this issue and this topic. But they do not control the topic. They are not a lawgiver to allow them to rent or buy a space here. So I just want to make that clear, that that's understood. And that this is merely Sally presenting the topic to us, that planning is going to be hearing it. They're going to be making a determination that will then be brought to us along with a public hearing. So that it's not the school, but the elimination of the zone. Right, the separation. So they're going to hear that, they're going to make their decisions, they'll come with their recommendations, and we're going to have a public hearing with then anyone can come and talk, but we can't get there without doing this step first. This is just the, hey guys, here's this topic that planning's hearing. We're going to be bringing it to you. Are y'all going to be willing to hear it? That's literally what's happening right now. That's it. So that's what we need to decide tonight on this, is
And
are we
I-
going to be willing to hear it?
And I want to separate procedure of moving this forward to a place where we can hear it versus a statement that you said where anybody has the right to come in. There is a difference between a business coming in and an established entity that has a defined definition. A school, Rusty Neal's School of Hard Knocks, I could buy a building or rent a building anywhere. But can Rusty Neal then all of a sudden bring in children by something that's not allowed to be? That's what I would like to find out, if an ordinance can be drafted that our homeroom municipality can establish an ordinance that says we will not allow a school to be placed within 400 yards of where alcohol is served. Is that a possibility?
Sally, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the state law, and we are permitted locally to deviate from the state law, and that is the proposal in this ordinance.
No, it's backwards. I'm saying the school cannot come in. What the state law says is a liquor or a business cannot come in and ask for a liquor license within, the state law says 500, but the homeroom municipality does have the leeway to change the distance. Woodland Park has decreased it to 400. Is it yards or meters, Sally, or feet? Feet, 400 feet. So we've exercised our right given to us by the Colorado Revised Statutes under homeroom municipalities. So we've modified it, but it only applies to new businesses wanting to get a license. They can't come within the school. Can we enact a ordinance that said a new school? Now, I know this one would be grandfathered, I understand, because they've already put in their paperwork, but in the future, a school cannot select a place within 400 yards of a establishment that sells or distributes alcohol. Is that a possibility? Is my question.
Rusty, I think that's, to use your term, backwards, or what, how do you ever use it?
That's backwards.
That. Because I'm not for increasing regulations on folks and free enterprise doing what they want to do. I'm not opposed to the school, and I'm not opposed to the businesses doing their business if they want to make liquor available. What I'm saying here is I'm just not sure that we've got all the facts here to say we can do this. We're being pushed. That's what concerns. See, it's pushing you to think, oh yeah, let's have an ordinance. Let's see if we can fix it by doing an ordinance. I'm thinking we have a deficit in the community, which has caused this school to make an application to fill a need.
Correct.
And it's a big deficit, and their plans, this is just very temporary. From what I understand, they have like 180 applicants. Within 10 minutes, they had to close the thing. So it's saying to me, we're being pushed as a council to make changes to ordinances and laws. Let's pause a minute. Let's see what, let's back up. What's structurally going on in our system that's causing this?
Attack the source. not-
Attack the
That's great, but
source.
not the
And then-
Totally
symptom.
different.
Yeah.
Totally different. Sally, can you answer Councilmember Neal's question?
I
please?
withdraw it, actually. I withdraw it, Sally.
Okay, okay.
Just based on what I heard Robert, because I don't want any more ordinances that are necessary. So I withdraw it.
I'm gonna let.
So I think based on the conversation we've had up here already, that it indicates that we do need to move this to a public hearing for more discussion and perhaps more fact finding. So if it's okay, I would like to make the motion that we approve ordinance number 1399, series 2021 on initial posting, eliminating school distance restrictions, applicable to premises holding liquor licenses located in Gold Hill South. And set the public hearing for June 17th, 2021.
July
I will
1st.
July
Sorry.
1st.
July 1st. Oh, sorry.
Tonight's June 7th.
I'll second.
Zuluaga,
No.
Alfieri,
Yes.
Case,
Yes.
Labar,
Yes.
Neil.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-1.
I'd like to, Sally, I'd like to suggest before we do the public hearing on this in July that we work with Nina to clarify the quasi judicial instructions, because there's obviously a lot of interest up here about the school. And there's a danger that we show bias or prejudice ahead of the quasi judicial application on the school itself.
Yep.
And I don't think we want to result in Councilmember Zuluaga, for example, having to recuse himself from that conversation because of comments made in connection with this issue. So I think we ought to make sure we're very careful so that everybody can participate in both issues and we don't say something that precludes you by showing prejudice from participating in the quasi judicial application of the school itself. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. I do agree.
So we'll figure out some more specific instructions so we all know where the line is.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Nina and I actually talked about doing a workshop on quasi judicial. So if we
Okay.
could perhaps have that.
And she said she plans on being here and doing it on the 1st,
Okay,
as it turns out.
Okay.
excellent.
Well, then.
There you go, serendipity.
Your partner's ahead of you. I just,
Oh, it's 9:02.
yes.
I suppose we want a break, don't we?
We don't have
10 minutes? We already have someone getting up. It's happening. 10 minutes. Be back at 9:12, please.
Of the process, yes. So we can go into in-depth discussion, and we can't go into in-depth discussion until we move forward. I didn't want to move forward,
So we're still on the same page.
All right, we're going to move on to item number 9, public hearings. 9A, I see Sally's ready at the podium.
I am. And do you need to read the texting public hearing message? Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. Item number 9A is the UYO subdivision final plat. This is a request by NES, the consulting firm, and John Romero is here this evening representing the property owner. And New Life Holding Corporation is the property owner. And Rob, there, thank you. And this is a minor subdivision for one lot, which is 10 acres of land located at 1121 Sturman Parkway in the Sturman Planned Unit Development PUD Zone District. This is a quasi-judicial case. And next slide is the vicinity map, which shows the site outlined in red. And unfortunately, I don't have a pointer, but I think you can see it on the west side. Thank you, Rob. West side of the community on Sturman Parkway. Next slide. And here is a little bit closer view of an aerial of the 10-acre site, which is marked by the yellow star. It is south of Meadowood Park and west of Evergreen Heights and east of Trout Creek floodplain and just north of the former Sturman's property. Next slide. This is the comprehensive plan map, which shows in yellow, single family residential. The blue star is compatible with the comprehensive plan map. The southern portion of the Sturman PUD is shown in red. Just for your information, that is identified as commercial because the original PUD had light manufacturing and research and development. So that's why that is shown in red. But the subject property, 10-acre tract, is a single family residential approved area in the Sturman PUD. And next slide.
Can you stay there for a minute? Because we don't have that one in our packet and I can't see it very
Sure.
close here.
So is the light green is known as open space. The yellow is single family residential. The pale yellow is Teller County rural residential. And this is the future land use map that was created 10 years ago and based upon existing uses and the PUD final development plan or master plan.
All that yellow is single family residential. It's already zoned, all that. It's already zoned, is that right?
Most of it is zoned for single family residential, yes.
And the red you said is what?
Commercial.
Sally, when you say the Sturman PUD, what are the lines that are drawn around the entire PUD area?
I'm going to show you that, but I'll describe it. It's the area north of Trout Creek Road, which is in the lower portion by Karis Bible College, the pink. And then it goes all the way north, almost to Meadowood Park.
Okay,
And I do have a slide that shows the Sturman PUD for you. Yeah, okay. I think we can go to the next slide. This is the zoning map. So this shows the purple is planned unit development. And it is within the Sturman PUD final development plan to have single family where the red star is.
So Sally on. So Sally, using this one right here, where is the Sturman property boundary? From Trout Creek Road?
Trout Creek Road north is the purple.
Yep.
And the green is part of their PUD as well.
Okay.
The light green, and then all the way almost to Meadowood Park.
Okay.
The light green is agriculture. And it was zoned agriculture back in 2000 when it was annexed into the city. We call this the Larson Tract. And the white area is actually owned by the city, and our city water tank, Gold Hill Tank, is on that.
So Sally, if we were to overlay what's in our packet on top of this, the proposed lot that they're trying to subdivide, it would be where you see that little box that is drawn.
Yes.
Just to the below the star. That star would basically be in the center of where that
new
box would be.
Yes.
Butting up against the curve.
Yes.
Of the, I think that's Sturman Parkway.
It
correct?
is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And then the other box that you see just off to the right is called the Armstrong subdivision. And that was subdivided as part of the Armstrong family years ago for a single family. So right now, there are only 2 single families on this north end of the Sturman PUD.
So the one below it is also has a residence on it? That's the one
Yes.
in the packet, it looked like it was Pearson or something?
Pearson, you're correct.
So there's a resident there now.
Yes, there is. Yes. Oh. Okay. Okay, he was just clarifying that the lot to the south is owned by Pearsons.
And there is an existing house on it.
Yes.
And there is an existing house on the little.
On the
library or
Armstrong.
Whatever on that to the right.
Yes.
Okay.
And the property boundary owned by New
Life Holdings.
Is that what they call it? Yo.
The subdivision name for this one lot is Uyo, but New Life Holdings Corporation owns nearly 300 acres there.
So almost all of this purple.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And the green.
So the residence, it is owned by that organization also?
No, those 2 existing lots
Are separate.
Independent
Okay, that's
people.
what I wanted to know.
Mhm.
Okay.
But
Correct. Yep. Okay.
Andrew Womack Ministries headquarters, which is now located in the former Sturman's Research and Development and Manufacturing Facility, is kind of at the lower portion of, let's see, the southwest corner of the green is where Innovation Parkway is and the headquarters. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. So here is the Sturman PUD. And on this, and I know it's hard to see, and I wish I could point for you. And yeah, I can't. So Trout Creek Road, yeah, there's the star, which is encumbered within the residential area. And there were multiple uses in the Sturman PUD, resort area, the headquarters, the light manufacturing facility, over 500,000 square feet of manufacturing area. Now, the ministry is planning on, they're working on a master plan for this property and will be coming forward with future amendments to the PUD depending upon their master plan. And that master plan will be shared with you before the amendments are proposed. And also it will be up to the Planning Commission for reviewing the amendments. This PUD called for about 100 residential units. That includes a 35-acre tract on the north end that was actually part of the Evergreen Heights PUD. So there could potentially in this pink area and north have 100 units approximately. Okay, next slide.
Sally, quick question. When you say 100 residential units, was that determined to be single family, multifamily?
Single family.
Okay.
Yep. So here is a snapshot of that 10-acre site showing the location of the new home and the jigsaw puzzle around the new home is the limits of disturbance. They did submit a wildfire prevention plan or mitigation plan, and so that will be implemented as part of this project. Next slide. Here's the north gate of the Sturman Parkway. Sturman Parkway currently is a 60-foot wide access, private access and utilities easement. In the future, we, the staff, would like to see this become a public road, but that is not on tonight's agenda. And it will be part of the master plan that you'll be able to view in the near future. Next slide. So in reviewing a minor subdivision, the final plat requirements for the drawing information and standard items that the surveyor puts together on the plat were all reviewed and are in compliance. The improvement guarantee, there is a need to extend the water line 700 feet to the north on Sturman Parkway. So they have submitted plan and profiles for the water line. And in order for council to approve a plat before the infrastructure is completed, then a subdivision development agreement and a guarantee needs to be in place. And that guarantee is for $55,000. And I do have a signed subdivision development agreement and a guarantee from a reputable bank, and it has been reviewed by our city attorney, which is perfectly in line with our expectations. The dedication of no, it's not applicable for the road right away at this point in time. There is a requirement for fees in lieu of parks being one lot. It's not applicable to dedicate parks at this time. So they will pay the fee in lieu of parks, which is a little bit over $2,000 prior to recording the plat. The design standards in terms of the lot, the sizes and easements all comply, and that the extension of the water main will take place. There's already an existing sewer main that goes in front of this lot. So water and sewer will be serviceable. Electric, gas are already in Sturman Parkway as well. Next slide. This was referred to various city departments, internal and external. There were no concerns. It was properly posted and letters sent to the adjoining property owners. as well as being advertised in the Pikes Peak Courier. Next slide. So Planning Commission did review this and recommended approval with 2 motions. The first is to approve the subdivision with the acceptance of park capital fees. And the second motion is to accept the subdivision development agreement, which a draft was in your packet, and the guarantee of $55,000. Happy to answer questions, or I can turn it over to John Romero, and he can do a presentation based on the applicant.
Council, would you like Mr. Romero to come up? Okay.
All right.
That's good.
Good evening. I'm John Romero. I'm with NES. We are representing New Life Holdings on this application for the subdivision plat. We are here today just to discuss the subdivision plat as mentioned by Sally. Next slide, please. I'll try not to go too in depth. Sally did a great job of explaining the site and kind of the application. I'll just give a little bit more background. As Sally mentioned, it's a 10-acre site just south of the Evergreen Heights neighborhood. This is within the planned PUD, which is an approved document which identifies the residential uses. This is only for a single family residence. Next slide. As mentioned, these past approvals were through the Sturman Parkway or through the Sturman Industries PUD, which again permitted residential uses and up to a maximum of 63 total. There are no major changes that we're requesting for the PUD at this time, just to allow the use as approved through the PUD. Next slide, please. The current application, as mentioned, is for a 10-acre single-family parcel. We did provide drainage in the stormwater management plan, wildfire mitigation, as Sally had mentioned. And then following this, there'll be subsequent applications following the approval of the plat application, which would allow for the single-family ZDP, which is the next step in the platting process, which is the site plan and all those different items. As part of that, we did identify that there were no setbacks notified on the original PUD. So we are agreeing to doing a 25-foot setback for all residential uses. It should be noted that this property actually sets back 300 feet from the right-of-way. So there's adequate setbacks provided. There was a utility service plan provided, grade and erosion control, all the necessary documents. In addition to that, we met with the fire department to make sure that we had proper fire access, turnaround access, all the proper needs for them. As Sally mentioned, there's also a desire or a need to extend the public water line, and we're doing that through the multi-use ZDP process, which would extend that water line about 7 feet. It's a public water line. It's an 8-inch PVC line. We did agree to all the conditions of approval as noted. There was a discussion on maximum building height, which we had worked through early on before this approval and still are working through, but we'll meet that requirement of the 35-foot requirement for the building plus a 20-foot for accessory for like garages, those types of things. Subdivision development agreement, as she mentioned, was executed and submitted, and pending approval of the final plat that'll be signed along with the security for the improvements. With that, I'm here for any questions that you'd like to ask and can go from there.
Council, any questions or comments?
I'm not sure who would be the appropriate person. I'll start with yourself.
Sure.
When I was reading through the public comments for the council chamber or the Woodland Park Planning Commission that was conducted on May 27th, two citizens asked the same question, and the planning director gave the same answer. And it was a Mr. Mark Sumner and Mr. Joe Fury asked if the lot would be subject to taxes, in which the response was the planning director rightly stated that they would be taxed as a residential rate. How is that codified? And there is some heartburn in the city over some dormitories that were supposed to have been built by your parent organization, the Andrew Womack Ministries LLC or Limited. So protecting the interests of these two citizens and myself, how is it codified? Because evidently there was some misunderstandings of whether the property with dormitories would be taxed or not taxed. I just want to make sure we don't have any more heartburns. I know the commissioners are working with Andrew Womack to get a different perception. So how do we codify that the taxes, they will be paying residential taxes?
Yeah, I'll probably let Mr. Wilson answer that, but that's a great question. Residential uses are always taxed. We're not asking for any sort of change in that, and it's not a codified thing. It's a state law. So those are things that when you have a residential use, those things are taxed. Similar to commercial, industrial, those types of items. So, but good question.
It's private property, and that's based on the tax assessor's law, which is governed through the state.
So that means the nonprofit tax exemption could not be somehow placed on it because
It's a private residence.
that's all I
Does not
needed to know.
apply, yeah.
I'm a little jealous. It's a beautiful looking elevation, but that was the only thing I saw in the entire packet that I
That's a
wanted
good
to
question.
confirm for the citizens. Thank you. Hillary, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I have one, and it's just it's determined to extend the city main for 700 feet.
Yes, sir.
And I also saw in there's a fire hydrant as well.
Mhm.
Is that preemptive to further development that's likely there? Or is it to get fire to a hydrant to a certain?
Two things.
Yeah.
They have to be able to serve the building. So part of being able to get utility service for that, they have to extend the main at their cost. The other piece with the hydrant is for fire protection. So that's just a requirement by fire code to do that.
And then that when I saw you can do 63 or up to 100 units in this area, that's going to all service that neighborhood in season, or is that really just the one residence?
That is meant for the one residence. The main line still has to meet certain standards as it moves forward for public main lines. But the 63 residents is just what was allowed through the original PUD, and we're only asking for one residence.
Okay. Yeah.
I have no questions.
Okay, seeing no further questions.
Actually, I have one. Uh-oh. And this is more just a curiosity, probably for Sally. How do we end up with sewer to the property, but not water to the property?
The sewer was taken from the headquarters north, and sewer is gravity flow. So that made sense in order to get through Meadowood Park and go north. Kip can probably add more technical advantages to that. There was no sewer serving this area. The water, it actually, in order to serve the headquarters and the Sturman's house, comes out of Bradford Lane, out of the Evergreen Heights. And it was the shortest distance. And because water is under pressure, it doesn't have to go a certain route in order to gravity flow.
Thank you. Like I said, just more question of curiosity. I knew there was something unique there.
All right, and
Thank you.
let's see. I don't see anyone in the audience. Is there, we do have Brini, right? Signed up for this topic?
He's going to let me know whether you wanted to speak or not.
Okay.
There's nobody.
Then I decline. Thank you, though.
Okay, very
No
well.
public comment.
I remembered. Council, can I get a motion to approve the subdivision final plat, please?
Oh, and I need two motions.
Oh, two motions.
That's right. There's two separate ones.
Can you
We'll
pull
start with the
those
first one.
back up?
Is the motion, I make a motion to approve the UEO subdivision final plat as request by NES, applicant and New Life Holdings for the minor subdivision for the one lot plant of 10 plus or minus acres located at 1121 Sturman Parkway in the planned unit development.
I'll second.
Alfieri,
Yes.
Case?
Yes.
Labar,
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Zulawaga?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
I don't have the language for the second one, Sally.
Sally, if you could.
Could you put it up on the screen or something?
Rob will
Or-
have to do that, or I can read it. That the city council accept the subdivision development agreement for the UYO subdivision, complete with the guarantee in the amount of $55,030.50 as attached.
Could you read it? Yeah.
You can make a
I'd
motion.
like to make a
approve as
motion
read.
Can you see it?
that we accept the subdivision development agreement for the Yo-Yo subdivision, complete with the guarantee in the amount of $55,030.50 as will be attached.
Yes.
I'll second that as well.
Okay. Case?
Yes.
Labar,
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Zulawaga?
Yes.
Alfieri?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sally.
Thanks, Sally. Thank you, sir.
All right, moving on to item number 10, new business. We have none. And we are off to 11 reports.
You're on.
I have some, but I gotta find them.
I had one also.
Okay, this evening I have some events that are up for the next 2 weeks. Farmers Market is Friday at 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. in Memorial Park. We have the Woodland Park Library Book Sale, Friday, June 18th and 19th, noon to 4 p.m. at the library. We have the Woodland Park Aquatic Center Parents Night Out, Friday, June 18th, from 3:30 to 7 p.m. We have the Divide/Collection Site open Saturday, June 19th, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the electronic recycling event with the Sims team, City of Woodland Park, June 26th, 9 a.m. to noon, located at the Woodland Park Public Works Facility. And the Sims team is Keller Williams.
I was going to say that's not just the Sims team. It's actually, I'll go into more detail
Okay.
on my report.
You do that. Okay. Councilmember Alfieri.
It's a lot more than the Sims team.
I don't think I have anything. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
The electronics recycling event, Saturday, June 26, 9 to 12 at the Woodland Park Public Works Facility at 2410 Rampart Range Road. Just make a note that TVs and monitors are 47 cents a pound to recycle, but we'll take them. And that is a discounted rate from what you would get if you took it to eTech Recyclers, who is our sponsor for the event. Everything else is free of charge, free hard drive destruction. First 150 cars get a free swag bag. And you can call our office at Keller Williams or City Hall. Our office is 686-9100 or City Hall for more information. And we are partnering, Keller Williams Clients Choice as a whole is partnering with the City of Woodland Park again this year for that event. It is our 6th year. It's our 2nd year with the city. And I'll tell you what, we take away 2 to 3 huge, like U-Haul size trucks crammed full to the ceiling each and every year. And it is amazing how many of those huge TVs still show up. You'd think they'd be gone by now, but they're not. Anyway, Keep Woodland Park Beautiful is our nonprofit benefactor of this event as well. So we look forward to seeing everyone there on Saturday, the 26th of June, 9 to 12. Please note that we also have a secondary event on July 17th at the Public Works Facility for a shred day complimentary of those same folks. So put those 2 events on your calendar and have fun. And the Parks and Rec Advisory Board had canceled their meeting due to no business, so I have nothing to report on that this time. Thank you.
I have one report from the Keep Woodland Park Beautiful. I did stay in attendance, and I know you'll work out times eventually. Yeah, I noticed when you found out about it. There were 2 things that came out of it. There's still an effort to get administrative access to the Facebook page. Rob is going to be working that action so that they can make decisions on what to do with it. There was they didn't want to stand down on it or remove the link yet. They wanted to make one more attempt to get the administrator rights to that page. I'd leave that to them. The second thing is the litter prevention signs, and I guess they have a couple of the picking up the dog poop ideas. They were waiting until the new logo was approved and ready to be used. I have now seen the new logo, so can they make the assumption that the logo is available and can be obtained and they can start moving forward with their signs?
Yes, sir. Grace will have that.
And just to clarify, Rusty, that dog poop cleanup is not part of the recycling event.
That could become questionable, but that is understood. That's all I have, Mayor Pro Tem LaBarre.
So Rusty, I'm just wondering how we need a logo on dog poop bags. That's all. Oh, never mind. I don't need an answer. I'm just asking.
We're not going to market ourselves that way. I'm sorry. We're not going to do it.
Yeah, city labeling. So, all right. So Main Street is looking for volunteers for the 4th of July to help man the booth. So if you have an interest in helping Main Street, you can contact what's called like info at Main Street. What's the info at wpmainstreet.org. I've got that from a reliable authority. The DDA has had just a whole bunch of materials donated. So that, as Tanner spoke about it, we're going to see some changes happening down there. That's pretty cool. And PPACG, we had our monthly meeting today, but the part that's exciting for me for Woodland Park is that in the pre-discussions, I asked them, well, so what's it look like for moving it forward? I mean, most people have said, oh yeah, you're not going to get a reliever route to 2045. And so actually, no, it's actually moving a lot faster than that. By 2022, funds will be available from CDOT, and our region needs to find $100,000 to as our portion of the study. So the study's $500,000 or $600,000. So that's not just Woodland Park. The reliever route is really a regional endeavor, so that we're looking to the mines, we're looking to the casinos, we're looking to the ski resorts and the holiday areas. So we really have a year or so to develop relationships and solicit interest from some of these other players to participate in that. So the study will be done, that gets it on. And so if anyone here understands PPG, good for you, but it is PPACG. It's just one complicated organization. Anyway, they get the funds, they allocate them, it gets put on a calendar, they schedule all the budgets for like till 2024, and then the next calendar comes. So this puts us, we're not only on the calendar with this, but we are now moving the steps forward of what it's going to actually take to make it a reality. So actually, to me, it's very exciting that it's moving forward. So. And that's all I got.
Okay.
I have
sure.
a question kind of to both of you. How do we initiate that process? Because I know that would be Teller County commissioners would be involved. And it sounds like it's more than Teller County.
Mm-hmm.
So who on the city council, you're the primary. So do you have the lead on that, Hillary?
Yes.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. It's just such great news. How do we do that?
Well, Robert's been initiating discussions actually more than I have. I've just been kind of sitting back and watching him talk to particular people about it.
So you've got the bull and you're gonna.
Well,
the horns.
I'm moving it forward. Let's just say there's
Got
still
it.
a lot more answers we don't have yet, but
Yeah.
but PPACG, El Paso County, CDOT, they're all very responsive and cooperative to answering the questions. So
Robert has an interest in it more so than I do. So he's
I want to know who's belly button to.
he's been finding the right contacts and the right people to ask those questions about. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, okay. And now, city attorney, anything for us? That's the best report ever. Okay. Mr. Lawson.
I don't want to have to follow that. That's not fair. Sally, you want to do comp plan update first?
Sure, be happy to. So a quick update, you are all engaged with your subcommittees and know that they have been working very hard on goals, objectives and actions. And we will be wrapping up the subcommittee work with the meeting on Monday, June 25th. And at that meeting, you will be reviewing your chapter. Logan Simpson is generating those chapters right now. We're reviewing them. And so each subcommittee at the UPass Cultural Center meeting in person will review your chapters. After that, your respective chapters will be passed on to the Planning Commission, and Planning Commission will hold a series of workshops. We'll break up the entire document probably into 4 workshops, and the chairman and the scribe or any other appointed person, we would like you to participate with the Planning Commission as they review the chapters. And once they complete their review, I'm thinking about 4 work sessions in July and August. Then they will hold a public hearing on the final draft and adopt the comprehensive plan and recommend that the city council endorse the comprehensive plan. So we're making good progress. And Logan Simpson is also going to be at the 4th of July collecting more information from our citizens on what attracted them to our community. So we get some insight there, as well as helping set some priorities. So they're going to take the top dozen priorities that are coming out, like the reliever route, improvements to downtown, affordable housing, and ask people to rank them. So we'll get some more information on the 4th of July. Any questions?
Slight correction, because you said Monday, June 25th, but I think
Oh,
we're talking
June
June 28th.
28th.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
that's at 6 o'clock at the Cultural Center.
6
in
o'clock
person,
at the
yeah.
Cultural
Thank you.
Center, 6 to 8.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I was interested in just one thing you said. I mean, I was interested in all what you said, but just one thing that I want to question, that's all. You said it will be brought to city council for endorsement
Correct,
as opposed to approval.
correct.
Can you articulate the difference?
I can. So the state statute empowers the Planning Commission to create and adopt a comprehensive plan or a master plan. So really, this is the Planning Commission's long-range plan. However, they, of course, want the council to endorse because you set the priorities for through the budget and through your strategic plans for the city. So thank you for that, because there is a fine line there, a
You're
nuance.
very subtle. I got it.
Yes.
And Jeff Wilson, I will remind you of your retainer. You've been very dry with your humor lately, and I just want to know if you want to reconsider.
Thanks for the invite, but no.
Last joke I told my staff rolled my eyes at me, so I won't even try. It's a true story.
Oh, that's what he told? We're losing our. No,
Oh, not
I won't go there. I won't go there.
Briefly on the sales and lodging tax report, you can see that in your packet. we continue to be strong in both these areas. Fortunately, year to date, you see sales tax through April up 14.4% compared just for the month last year. Month to month, we were up 17%. Lodging tax, hold on a second. The reason for that sales tax we have listed here, consumer goods, as we all know, are going up in price quite rapidly. And folks are going out and living their lives that they haven't really done as much in 2020. So you'll see that in the year over year. Lodging tax, if you're looking at the PDF of the packet, there's a slight typo in there. It says lodging tax is up 1.4%. It's actually 140% year to date. Same story we've shared with you many times over the past year. We have a new microtel in town. We have the VBRO or short-term rental tracking. And so you'll see that showing up in these triple-digit percentage increases for lodging tax, 140% again year to date for April, and then 689% compared to last April. So there you go.
Very good. Council, any comments, questions?
I do have a comment. I noticed that we're doing great on lodging tax, and I'm wondering, and I don't know if it's just a discussion point or a research point. I understand we've like doubled the number of Airbnb VRBOs in a year. So my question about that, in terms of probably with the comprehensive plan and what you're looking at there, is what impact is that having on housing in Woodland Park? If we've doubled in 12 months, do we know what that graph's going to look like? And is something we need to monitor?
Can I just quickly add, I think part of the reason it's doubled is also because of the sales tax that you received in order to track.
Say again.
The software that they got to track.
Right.
So, because before we didn't have it, so it's helped the city to be able to track those businesses. But
Sure.
Not to mention
besides
that last year we were shut down.
Right.
Yeah.
It is a fair question, and that's one I would like to understand better. Just anecdotally, we do see a continued rise in the number of short-term rentals that are being registered. And so we've in the affordable housing context, I mean, that's not for right now, obviously,
No.
but it's a fair question. It's one that a lot of jurisdictions are dealing with, like our colleagues in Teller County too.
Oh.
It's something to consider that we can bring back at some point. But the staff was telling me that a couple days ago that we've seen pretty much what you've said in terms of increases in a year. So it does continue to rise.
And Sally, you're digging into that new bill that was approved.
Yes.
What the council may not be aware of is there was an approval, I don't remember, it was like
75.
Yeah, something like that. A new bill was approved and signed into law allocating a lot of monies, grant type monies for developers. If they did certain things, including attainable housing. And I've reached out to Sally and she was diving into it. And hopefully there'll be some more information. This is part of my CML, I guess, interest that I saw it and I asked her.
Yeah, the new bill has 3 components. The first is that you have an up-to-date assessment of your housing needs. And we completed with mostly the help of John Schaefer in 2016, the housing assessment for Woodland Park. The second is any additional regulations that might encourage affordable housing. For example, maybe we look at our accessory dwelling units and make those more attractive to folks to put a mother-in-law unit into their home. And then the third component is the potential for getting funding for infrastructure or actual housing projects. Since Woodland Park doesn't have the mechanisms in place, it would rely on other organizations, private developers, Habitat to take advantage of that third tier. So yes, I've read the law and understand there's quite a few strings attached to this.
Of course.
Good. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. Guess what? We're adjourned.
How close were we, Suzanne?